Alright, today we are working on 2004 Toyota Sienna. Has the 3.3 liter V6. We're going to do the timing belt. It has 115,000 miles on it, and we're going to have to take this off. They recommend removing this, but I don't think I'm going to, because I've seen people do it without it, so I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to remove that. So it looks like we got 12 millimeter, 14, actually that looks like 14, 14, 14, 14, 14, 12, 14, another one right here, looks like a 14. We're going to move all those out of the way, get this up out of the way, push it to the side. Already came down here and already broke loose the bolt. You see right there, it's a 22 millimeter, and I just used my Craftsman. It's a 8 amp. I got this thing for about like $100 on Amazon. So break that loose, then we're gonna go up. The reason I want to do that first is because obviously if we can't get that off first, I have special tools to do it and everything, but if we can't get that off, you're not doing the timing belt because it's behind that. So now we're gonna start working up above, start taking off some of the mounts and everything. You see the engine supporter right here with this mount, so we're not really gonna have to support the engine from below like you would have to do on a Honda. And so from here we're just gonna start working our way above. And if you look at that belt right there, that belt doesn't look any good. This would be a good time. We may, I don't know if you got the parts for that. You can see it's starting to crack. That's no good. We may have to make a trip to the parts store to get parts if they want to replace it, because this would be the time to do it now. So I had removed the cover, 10 millimeter, and there's a little push pin right here. You just push it in and pop it out. It actually fell back into here. I'm gonna have to get it. So 10 millimeter headed, 22 millimeter for the crank bolt, and that little push pin you push in the center, and then you should be able to pull it out. So let's work our way. You can see these belts right here are no good though. So we're going to be using 10 millimeter, 12 millimeter, 14 millimeter. I'm sure there's 17 millimeter. The 21 millimeter to take off the tire, and 22 millimeter to take off the crank pulley bolt. And let's get it started. Let's remove all this stuff out of the way. It's just self-explanatory pretty much. So you got 12 millimeter, 12 millimeter, 14 millimeter, 14 millimeter, 14 millimeter, 10 millimeter, and one running here. Looks like 14 millimeter, 14 millimeter. Let's get all those up out of the way. If I'm filming it, I'm just going to be in your way anyways. So let me remove all that stuff. Like I said, we don't have to really support the engine from below because it's not going to be in our way. So let's go ahead and start removing that. So we got all this stuff out of the way. The long bolts you see go right here, right there, and right there. Shorter one goes right there. Also the shorter one that goes right there. We've still got to remove this one, 14 millimeter. So we got our bolts right here nice and lined up, separate. You know, it's, to tell you the truth, it's not really professional when you put all this stuff on the hood and everything. And so I don't have nothing up here on the hood. You know, that's, to me, it's unprofessional to do that. A lot of people do that and they get away with it. It's just not a good idea. So I got all those loose. I pulled this out. I didn't need to remove that to take that off. That is a 14 millimeter. Started off with a 14 millimeter wrench. Finished taking it off with a ratcheting wrench. And then these are the parts I took off right here. That one, that goes exactly the way you see it, like that, sitting down in there like that. And then this one goes in between here, and our little piece fell off, a little damper or whatever. So that one goes into the, you know, frame area that I just showed that I pulled that 14 millimeter from the top. So we're going to continue down here. I'm going to break that loose. Looks like a 12 millimeter. And then I will also break that, looks like maybe a 14 millimeter loose. Maybe a 14 millimeter right here. Break that loose. Well, I'm gonna get this out of my way first. Break that loose. 14 millimeter looks like. Break this one loose. Looks like a 12 millimeter right there. And then I believe it's counterclockwise, and it should relieve tension off of this belt, and we'll be able to remove the belt from there. Okay, so we can notice the location of the way the belt is. If we replace the belts the same way, it's up to the customer whether they want to change it or not. But you know, it's a trip out of the way. Right now would be a good time to do it, but it's not up to me, it's up to the customer. So let me just do that. And I think there's some bolts from below I gotta get. There's some bolts from below I gotta get. Get this bracket off. Get this other 10 millimeter out of the way right here. Disconnect this. Actually, this thing's... Actually, this is about to pop off. I just loosened that. These long bolts were what holding this on. This is gonna pop right off as soon as I take this last one out. As soon as I take that last 14 millimeter out and take that one out, pop this up out of the way after disconnecting that tab. And then, like I said, break the 12 millimeter loose on that one, and then rotate, I believe, counterclockwise to relieve tension. Take the belt off, get that out of the way. So let's do that. And then we could take a look. We'll pop these off. These just, you lift up on these tabs and this pops off. So you just lift out on this tab and pop that off. Same thing here, lift out, pop this off. So now we have room to get back there. And then we'll get the 10 millimeter. There's several other 10 millimeters down there. Let's do that. We'll take a look at the belt. I'm gonna actually have to get back there too to do the rest of the 10 millimeters. So let me do all that stuff I just told you I was gonna do. So this is a 12 millimeter. Loosen that, and then when you pull this, this will move. You can see where it was. It's gonna move back up. So when we go to put it back, we're gonna push this down, tighten that first, and then finish tightening that, and that loosens the belt for the power steering pump. So we're just gonna pull that off. I'm gonna need my two hands to do this. Oh, what's coming off? I think you guys get the point. So just 12 millimeter. I used a wrench to break it loose. You could use a shallow socket 12 millimeter or a wrench. I used a wrench and a ratcheting wrench, and that's all there is to it down here, and we'll pull that off. Alright, so this little kit, just like $12 from AutoZone. This is 19 millimeter. These were 13 millimeter. I'll put a link in the description of the exact thread pitch. It's got to be metric, 10 by 125 or something like that. So we're just gonna I put this a little adapter. The other one that's on there is cone shaped. And this comes with another kit. Just, you can buy the steering wheel puller from Harbor Freight, or you could get this from AutoZone. So tighten them down evenly. Don't slam it down in the center of the threads. Like I said, I put this cone there, over there, so it doesn't go down on the damage the threads. And we're gonna go in clockwise. Like butter. I'm barely touching. I'm just doing it slow because I don't want to drop it. I'm not even trying hard though. I just don't want to drop it. Let's see. I wasn't even hitting it hard. I just don't, like I said, I don't want to drop it. Oops. Sorry. I just finished it off. Oh, like that. Hold the camera real quick. Just hold it right there. Down. That's it. Here's that little cone I was talking about. Alright. So, let me just leave it right there. It pops off. Goes right here. .13mm. I put an extra washer just to hold it on there better. Some of these wiggle off by hand, some of them don't. So these goes in, it's got to be metric, probably, I don't know, 10 by 125 or something. I'll put it what it is, I'll see what it is. And the little cone that I was using was not that one. The little cone goes in here, pushes on there. You don't want to go inside the threads. This holds it right here so it doesn't go inside. And that's it. You go clockwise on both of them. Alright, so we have these, there's a nut here. We take this nut off. There's also a nut here, and basically at the tip of this though, there's a stud that goes into the engine like this, okay, and right at the tip of it is a E-Torx, E8, but when you try to take it off, because it has so many miles on it, they just always break off. So the fix for this is I put one nut all the way on, and then I put another nut, and then I jam them together, and then I loosen this nut, and when it's jammed to here, so I'll hold this nut while I'm turning this one, and it pushes against here, and eventually it gets this whole stud out. Now we only had to remove that one, thankfully, because there's another one down there that's right there, and I'll show you that. Let's go to the top. So we left that one in there. You can see I was trying to get it off. It doesn't come out. And yes, I know there's bolt outs. I have those. I tried those. It wasn't working. There's extractors. I tried those. Those weren't working. So yeah, just use that double nut method. Be real careful. Make sure they're jammed together tight. Make sure you're turning it the right way. And we're just going to leave that one in there. I'm not even going to bother taking that one out. We don't need to take it out. I hope we don't need to take it out. We might need to take it out for the water pump. No, I don't think so. It'll be easier to take out this way anyways. We got plenty of room. We could get like a bolt extractor or whatever on there. If we got to take it out, we got to take it out. If we don't, then we don't. So anyways, use that double nut method for that. Also, there's a plate here. It only faces one way. I wrote front on it. So this is a 10 millimeter, I believe, for the tensioner. This is looks like maybe 12 millimeter. There's one here, and there's one here to relieve the tension off of the timing belt. The power steering pump's a little bit in the way. I'm probably just going to loosen the bolt and then like try to pivot it out of the way. Hopefully, you know, we don't have to remove the power steering altogether. So that's what I'm going to do. And yeah, let's take this off. That's a 10 millimeter hex. So make sure you don't lose that plate. Alright, so let's I'll show you some of the parts removed though. See how many of them. This is the plate I'm talking about. I just wrote front, and it doesn't go on the outside, it goes on the inside. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4, and then that's for the bottom. Actually, there's another one right there. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, 4. And then on this one, you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Actually, this one goes right here like that. So you actually have 1, 2, total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. Yeah, 9. total. There's the plate. Just have them lined up. And it's hot out here, boy. Alright. So there's the timing belt. Looks like it's about to break in 10 seconds. So we're gonna loosen that up. Yeah, you can see your water pump is leaking, bro. It's leaking, water pump. So let me go up under there, try to maneuver around that power steering pump to get that tensioner off, and I'll let you know exactly what I did. So in order to get the 2 bolts for the tensioner right there, the power steering is in the way of that bracket right there. So there's a 12mm right where you see my wrench on right here. We're just gonna loose, you can see it move out of the way. Actually, I probably don't even have to, I could probably just move it out of the way like this. Loosen it. Just loosen a little bit. Once again, that's a 12mm. Get it in here. Loosen it. So it's not, it should be nice and loose now. And I should be able to just move right out of my way. Actually, I'll continue to move that all the way out of the way, and the power steering will be able to move completely out of my way. So I'll just go in there with a ratcheting wrench. There it is right there though. So that bolt down there, 12mm. Down there. Go in there with a ratcheting wrench. Continue to take it all the way off, because this bracket right here is in the way. I gotta take this one off, and I gotta take this one off in order to take the tensioner off. First thing what I'm gonna do though is, so we got the line right here. Right here. And there's one right here. It's right there. There's a mark. So I'm gonna go from below. I'm gonna turn it. Looks like 180 degrees, which is 360 degree crank rotation. So let's see what it looks like down here though. I don't exactly see where the mark is. Looks like there's a, I don't know. Oh, right there. Great. You can see right there, right under the T where it says Toyota, there's like a nub right there. So that's gonna have to line up with, there's gotta be a mark on here. I'll find it. I'll let you know what the mark is, but there's a nub right there, right below the T on the Toyota. We'll line that up, make sure it's lined up from the top properly. So this thing is not a broken belt or anything, so we know as long as it's lined up from the top, it's good lined up from the bottom over here. And then I'll show you exactly where the mark is. It might be this right here. Might be that. Let's find out. So right there in blue, I marked it blue. There's a little indentation in that back plate, and then there's also right there below that T, there's a little knob. So those are perfectly aligned. Then these, I also put some blue on there so you can see this. So you want to come at it from an angle like this, and actually what we can do is mark it. Alright. And it's going to be hard to show you back there. It's really hard to get back there. But like I said, this engine is still timed. It's gonna hard to be the, I can't even fit the little camera in there. Try to. No, I can't get you in there. Good mark. I'll just check it with the. I'll just get a mirror and I'll check it. I'll put the blue dots on that too. Alright. So now that it's at top dead center, I'm going to continue to take that 14 millimeter bolt off, completely out, in order to move the power steering out of the way. And then once I do that, I am going to move the power steering out of the way and then release the tensioner, and then the belt will be free to come off. And then I'm also going to take off that the idler right there with the 10 millimeter hex. And then we'll get to this water pump. Alright, so we're going to take off this. It's a 14 millimeter in here. Okay, and so yeah, we're going to take that off. And then what I did is I just removed this new one. I got these right here. I just put the bolts on the new one, leave it here for now. And this one has a washer, came off, and that's that 10 millimeter. That's the idler tensioner. So I did that, and that was the 10 millimeter hex to take that off of that idler pulley. So we're going to pull this one off, and then we're going to have access to here. These look like 10 millimeter. We'll take out the new. I think I might have to take this off, which I was not looking forward to, but now we have this area where it's non-threaded that we could probably get like some vice grips on there or something like that, and just take it off like that, or maybe in the stud puller. Probably just put the stud puller on there. You can rent that from AutoZone. And then we'll loosen up all these bolts, make sure we have all the bolts, put a catch pen underneath, and pull this water pump off. As far as taking this plate, I might have to loosen this bolt, this one. There's probably another one over here, just to get it to go under it. Alright, that's what we're going to do now. So I got the metric stud remover kit. This is a OEM 27140. You can get this from AutoZone. I'm using the 8 millimeter. Now, it's going on the stud all the way. It didn't work for this other one that was right here because I couldn't get it in all the way, so it wasn't working properly. This one I could get it in all the way. It's a 21 millimeter right here. You get this on there, put it on there, make it loose. We have to take off that stud so we can get the water pump off, so that's why we're using that right now. It's a lot easier with this one though, to take it off after the after that bracket is out of the way, because you can put this on all the way. When that bracket's there, you cannot put the tool on all the way. So I'm going to remove that. I'm going to get all the 10 millimeter. Actually, you know what? Let's look at the new water pump. So we're going to take a look at the new water pump and just count the holes. So I don't think every single one of them is the one that goes through, but let's see, 1 2 3 4 5 so 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9, maybe 9. Actually, I think some of these larger ones are some of the bolts that go all the way through, so about 8, probably 8 or 9. So we'll count the bolts while we're taking them out. The other thing we're going to do is probably take this off, this piece of the plate right there, and maybe this part of the plate, the bolts right here, so we can pry it. I'm just going to pry it a little bit right here, but if I wanted to take this off, I could take those off, and that's what you would take off to change the seal. I don't believe we need to take that off. If we do, then we'll do it. If not, then we won't. Alright, so we got the pry bar right here, and we got back here, right back here, and we just kind of hold it. right there. Just kind of pried back on that blip a little bit. Pried forward so we can have enough room to get the water pump out. We cocked it this way, pulled it out like that, and if you notice, the gasket is still there. So definitely take that gasket off. You see this gasket right here? That's a metal gasket, and in this case we're not, so it's on there. You see the gasket? So we'll pull that gasket off of here. And in this case, we won't use the silicone. We're not going to need to use the silicone. We'll just put the new gasket on there, and no silicone required. I guess we could. So we'll just put the gasket first before with the water pump. And there's this little the tabs right here hold it in place. So it'll hold it in place. We'll just come in here, wipe this with a clean rag, and then put the new gasket. And then this guy helping me, he'll pull this forward a little bit like this, just a little bit to squeeze it up in there. Or else we're gonna have to take this whole plate off. And I had removed that. I had removed that so that we enable us to do that. So let's do that. Put the new water pump, tighten it down, and let's reverse everything. Start putting the timing belt, the pulleys, and all that other stuff. So you got to push this cover up a little bit, get it in at an angle, a small amount. So use a pry bar and try to push this plate a little bit forward, get it up under there, push it on there. It wasn't lining up properly, so I had to wiggle it a little bit. I had to move the plate a little bit forward, wiggle it, make sure it's in there. You can actually see from right here, from the side right here, that it's lined up properly. You can see it where it meets. If it's not lined up properly, you can see a gap there. So we know now that it's lined up properly. Okay, so the other thing I can tell you is right here, before we tighten up, there's 6 bolts holding the the water pump on. But before we tighten those, we start them all, and then I'm going to put this stud in here, just start off the thread, put this stud in here, just start off the thread, put this bolt in here, because this is where it came from, just start it off, and then I'm going to tighten up those bolts, and that's going to definitely make sure that, because these are going to have to go through there, so it's going to make sure that they are going to go in there when the time comes. Alright, so I pulled out the bolts and the studs that I used to position it in there with. I made sure I tightened all 6 of those down properly. I put these back. I put this back right now. I used a little bit of blue Loctite on this one so it never comes off. I cleaned the surface of this off a little bit, make sure it rotates properly. And what I did was I put a little bit of soapy water down there. I just put it in like a water bottle, poke a hole through the top, shake it and spray it down there. It soaps up a little bit, and then go in there with some hot water and wipe it down. And then what I do is, if you notice all the bolt holes and stuff, come in here with some compressed air, clean them out. I cleaned out all the bolts, all the holes, all of them, every single one of them. So that's a good thing to do, because you don't want water inside of those holes, because when you put a bolt in and the water's stuck in there and doesn't come out, it could hydrolock it and cause cracks. So if you hold the light, dude, let's see, hold it, yeah, right there, perfect. So, okay, see, there we go. So if you see right there, made a blue mark, and then the back plate right there lines up to the black back plate. There's a notch on it. See it right there. So we're perfectly lined up still. We didn't move anything when we're doing all this work. Not to mention there's marks on the actual timing belt itself. So we'll make sure they line up with that and the blue and everything. All right. So this one over here, though, this is just right here. So they didn't really move around on us. We'll put the belt. We'll start at the bottom. Actually, first we got to put the before we put the tensioner. We're not going to put the tensioner yet. We're going to put the idler. We're going to tighten that down. I'm going to put a little bit of Loctite on that too. The idler, and then we will put the belt, and then I'll start from down from the bottom, work my way up here, around here, up around here, down to that pulley, back around the back right over. Actually, I'll probably start with the back. No, I got to end up with the back over there, so I have slack on that end. And then I'm going to go below. Well, hopefully somebody holds tension right here. And then I'm going to install the tensioner itself. So let me do that. So the tensioner down there, leave the tensioner off when you're putting the belt. Start down at the crank down there, work your way up around this water pump. What I actually had to do, help me out, was I grabbed this 17mm wrench, turned it one tooth this way, put it on, and then put it back, and it caught the line. I already rotated it so you don't see the line there right now. So it tensions it, just makes it easier to do that. So that's nice and lined up. Down here, I went up here, and I did the same thing back there. I turned it one tooth towards us, one tooth, put the belt on, try to tension it, and then turned it back that way. And then I double checked to see. Actually took me 2 times to do that. The first time I put it on without turning it one tooth towards me, and then it was off one tooth. The belt was off going this way. And then so the second time I put a 17mm here, pulled it one tooth towards me, put the belt, and then pushed it back. And then when I checked back there, it was on there properly, and I could see that with the line in the belt. Now when you push it back though, it's going to want to jump. If you're not pulling tension, if you're pulling tension this way, it's going to want to jump off of there. So if you're not familiar with doing timing belts, the first timing belt you do, I suggest you have somebody helping you to get it done properly, because you don't want to mess up. Because things like turning it one tooth towards me, putting the belt, and then turning it back, you have to double check all your work. So after we got that on, I came down here, I pushed the belt onto the pulley down there. I did not install the tensioner yet, and I had the guy over here hold this on here with tension coming up like this, while I went below and put that tensioner on there, tighten the 2 14mm bolts up. I'm sorry, 2 12mm bolts. And then what I did was I pulled the pin after checking all the timing marks down there at the crank. So we're good right here. So we're good right there. Okay, and we're good in the back. Just take my word for it. We're good back there. It's hard to get you back there. What we're going to do, I hooked the battery back up. I'm going to make sure everything's out of the way. Okay, just make sure everything's out of the way, nothing's going to get caught. He's just going to start it for a quick second, make sure it starts. As soon as it starts, he's going to shut it off, and that's it. Then we're going to put everything back. Okay, thanks for watching. Well, so like I said, we're just going to put it back exactly the same way we took it apart. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go down. I'm going to do that power steering pump. It's just that one 12mm from the top. And then I'm going to start putting the lower cover, and then the upper cover, and just the same way you saw it taken apart. I'm going to finish it off. Thanks for watching. Comment, rate, and subscribe. Alright, so the last thing on this video is basically if you notice, this bolt runs through both this and that. This bolt runs through this bracket and that bracket. This is open. This one. It's open right here, but the bolt down there, I'm trying to point to it, that one right there runs through both the bracket and into the this other motor mount or whatever. So it runs through this piece and that piece. So it runs on the outside, hold on, right there. It runs on the outside of this bracket right here, and then this bolt goes through this bracket, and then this bolt goes through this bracket and that bracket, and this bolt runs through those two brackets, and this bolt, which is a shorter bolt, and the longer bolt right here, run through this and that to hold these together. And this bracket obviously runs through this and that, and this one with the clip right here runs down to there, to that one. And so I just kind of mocked everything up here like that, and now I'm just going to proceed to tighten all those up. And the last thing I'm going to do is put this belt on. That's still a good belt. I'm gonna put it over the alternator, the compressor, and then I'm gonna tighten it down using this right here, 12 millimeter. I'm gonna go clockwise, and then once it's nice and tight, I'm gonna tighten this bolt, this one right here, tighten it. Once this is nice and tight, I'm gonna tighten that one, and then I'm gonna finish tightening this one right here, and that's all there's to it. Before I finish tightening that one though, I'm gonna snug it up. I'm just gonna run this down a little bit, snug it up, tighten this one, then tighten that one lastly. So last thing I did is I wrote the time right here. I also wrote it right here, so if anyone's ever wondering, they'll be able to see that. So anyways, we're about 5 minutes, 10 more minutes, and we're good to go. And then I had already changed the coolant and everything. We'll work the system. It'll be good to go. Thanks for watching. Oh, and don't forget to put the ground right here, 10 millimeter. All right, let's button it up. Put this back where it goes, which is a little more that way, and we're good to go. And I had already started and ran it to make sure that it runs properly. And we also had turned over the engine several times by hand to make sure the timing marks lined up. You have to do that before you put everything else together, because if you do all this thinking the timing's right and you start the car and it doesn't work right, then you got to take everything else. We're already 100% sure that it's done. Thanks for watching. Comment, rate, and subscribe.